Hello, welcome to The Inner Estate. I'm Bridget Stuart, and I'm here today with an incredible real estate agent, Katie Cassidy from Asheville, North Carolina. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you so much for having me.
So today I'm really excited about the topic that we're going to dive into because we are going to talk about how language, not just the words you speak and how you say them, but your body language as well, can actually impact the overall communication and experience for your clients. So I'm thrilled to talk to you about that because I know that you have utilized these skills, not just in your real estate career, but in your previous careers. And I truly do think that the way that you communicate with your clients is a big part of their overall experience and why you have really satisfied customers. So we are going to jump in. I would like to ask you, when you think about rapport building, when you think about mirroring and matching a client, tell me what that means to you. You can go kind of big picture. Just tell me, what do you think of when you think about body language and communication?
I think the whole purpose of mirroring and matching is to make people feel seen and heard. I mean, that's all we really want as humans. And when we do feel seen and heard, it makes us feel like we're having a great experience. It makes us feel like connected to the other person. And I think that that's huge in any business and really relationships in general.
Right. I agree. It is critical that you make people feel comfortable enough that they will share their real feelings and their real needs with you.
Absolutely.
So as a realtor, it's critical. One of the worst things ever is not having that connection, thinking you know what they want, either in the sale of a home or the purchase of a home. Then you're out showing them houses that don't even come close. Right. Such a disconnect, right? So what are some of the ways that you could share with people that you make sure you are mirroring and matching a client so that they will feel comfortable and confident to be able to openly communicate with you?
I think the very first thing is coming into a conversation genuinely myself. I come in with a smile. I come in, I am wearing professional attire. I feel good because I've put thought into what I'm wearing, the way that I look, and how I'm presenting myself. After that, it's really just listening. In that first conversation, I need to understand who the person is on the other side that I'm talking to, and I can't know that unless I pick up on their mannerisms, their language, their background, their job, the words that they use. So I think taking the first conversation and just absorbing as much information as possible is the very first step.
Okay. So you mean you don't sit there and talk at length about yourself?
I don't know. Absolutely not.
Good.
Yeah.
Very good. And you ask them questions.
Yes, absolutely. People will open up when you ask them questions about themselves. And people love talking about themselves. My gosh, we talk about that in real estate all the time. Give them the space to show you who they are. And you can ask small questions like, hey, why is this home purchase important to you? And they'll open up. And then when they mention something about Fluffy, their dog, or their kids or something, genuinely be engaged and ask more questions. And the more you ask, the more open they will be.
When you think about mirroring and matching in particular, because I know there's some people that'll say like, oh, that's old school, or you just, people know when you're doing it, which by the way, they don't, right? So when you think about that in particular, would you say that you do that with intentionality when you first go in? Tell me a little bit more about how you use your physical positioning when you're first meeting with people.
And I think it's really important, first off, is to recognize that as humans, we generally can't be very far from who we are on either side of the spectrum. So let's just say we come into this conversation and my personality is a 5. I can really only go up to a 7 and down to a 3 before it's not genuine to me. And I don't know how to be an 8 or a 2. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. So you're going to mirror and match, but you're going to do it within the limits of what is natural for your personality.
Right, absolutely.
So Katie, I love that you brought that up. And the reason I am is because if anyone's listening to this, if they happen to be naturally more subdued, I don't want them thinking that they have to be incredibly animated if they're not naturally animated. And vice versa, if somebody is very naturally animated and talks with their hands, it's not that they have to sit on their hands and try to not be who they are. But you can still work to find that sweet spot of being in alignment with your client. Do you feel like the positioning or the body language remains as important throughout the transaction? Or do you think it's most important right in those early stages?
I think in the beginning, we tend to want to reel if I'm like a crazy person with my hands and everything, we tend to want to reel that in the beginning, just so that we can see what the other person's doing. If they're a crazy hand talker, then maybe we could pull that out later on. But maybe
Right.
just subduing that in the very beginning.
Well, it's really funny that you mentioned that because I agree. In the beginning, when you first meet someone, I think it's important that you meet them where they are. And to me, what that means is you're yourself. You come in a great neutral state,
Right.
like you discussed. You're smiling, your mindset is strong, your posture is strong, you're confident. You move with ease and elegance, right? So you come in and you're in that space where then you can determine their rate of speech, their leaning in or leaning back, their way that they use their hands. So you sort of assess that and then match them in the same
Right.
manner. I'll give you a perfect example. So I've gone into the conference room to meet with people, and both of them are sitting with their elbows on the edge of the table, leaning in, very upright and leaning forward. Well, if you came in and you sat down, met them, sat down, and you just slumped all the way back in your chair, they would instantly think something
Right.
was off. Even if they couldn't put their finger on it, if they're both their elbows on the table leaning in, and you sit down and you're like, you're not going to be showing them like, oh, I'm excited to meet with you, or yes, I understand that you're upset, or you're not meeting
Right.
them where they are. And the same thing if you walk in and right out of the gate, if they're very relaxed and they're both sort of leaning back in their chairs, elbows on the armrest, neutral hands in their lap, and you sit down and you lean forward, elbows on the table, you're going to come across as very aggro. You're going to come across as like more intense, and it's not going to feel right to them.
It's the same thing with facial expressions too. I show a lot with my face. And when I first meet someone, I like to keep a very neutral face, especially while they're talking about themselves, because I never want to seem judgmental or anything coming across. But as we
Right.
get to know each other after, a few conversations, they start to learn my facial expressions, and that actually helps them open up more. And then we kind of almost create this like unspoken language over time. Let's just say that we were in a showing where there was another agent there, and we don't really want to say what we want to
Right.
say, but we've created this unspoken language with our faces, and that definitely helps to build rapport. Now we've opened up even farther,
does.
and we know what the other person is saying without having to say it out loud. So I think that definitely
Right.
helps create rapport over time as well. But being
I think it does.
subtle about it in the beginning and letting it out over time.
It's so critical. It's really critical. It is those nuances that you just described, that nuanced silent communication really solidifies the relationship, and it can even assist you in securing the property for your clients. Because if you are there and there's other showings going on, how often have we picked up things that were said and then we use that when we are making an offer? So if you're in a competitive situation, having that silent communication is so key.
100%. Yeah.
If you're neutral and you read them first when you come in, then you're able to build rapport more quickly, and you're able to have them feel more comfortable right away. It's the facial expressions, it's the way you've positioned your body, it's where you place your hands. Like I said, if elbows are on the table, put yours up there too. If they're not, don't. And I think that's important in the beginning. After they have been sharing with you, then I think it is part of our job to start leading the energy in a way towards a successful working relationship. But I agree with you that in the beginning, it really should be led by the client, so you can customize it to each client and make them comfortable. So I've got a trick question for you. What do you do when you walk in the room and it's a couple and one is leaning back, arms folded, and the other is, I won't even say elbows on the table, but leaning towards the table with just their arms resting on the table? Who do you follow?
I feel like I try to stay somewhere in between, and I like engaging. Well, first of all, engaging both in a way that makes them both comfortable, and I still maintain eye contact with both of them at all times so that they know, I'm not favoriting one over the other. And I'm trying to kind of neutralize,
Good.
bring one of them back, bring one of them forward so that we're all in this conversation together. And I've had that happen before. And, definitely, which spouse is going to take over the conversation. And you still try to include the
Right.
other person because you know that this is a joint decision.
Right. Yes. So I think that's good. That's a good idea to go in there and pick up a little bit from each. And it sounds almost like you're doing fast switching because you're making the eye contact and you're engaging with both. So I'm sure you're able to do that because of being people oriented and developing your careers that you've had.
Yeah.
Right. You've developed that skill. I have another question for you about preparing for an appointment. Have you ever had a day go sideways?
Never. They're all perfect.
They're all perfect. What do you do to center yourself before an appointment if they've arrived and your day has gone sideways? What do you do to clear your energy? What do you do to neutralize so that when you walk in, you're in that, as we said, sort of coming from curiosity, focused on them, and neutral or good energy?
Great question. So I guess I've realized this about myself in the last couple months is I get really nervous when I'm meeting someone for the first time, specifically in a business setting. We can practice all day long with different personality types. And I've been through so many transactions before, but meeting someone for the first time and not knowing what you're going to get, it's a surprise and you got to pull out whichever tool in your tool belt right then and there. So in order to kind of calm my nerves on the way to an appointment, I put on some very slow lo-fi is what it's called, a playlist, just really, really low energy because my energy tends to be really, really high and anxious when I'm on the way to an appointment. So I try to balance that with really low, smooth music. I take some deep breaths.
Excellent.
I also like to take a cold sip of water just to kind of like give me that splash of cold temperature in my body, and it kind of helps like ease the anxiousness. And before I knock on the door, I tell myself, this is going to go awesome. I've got this in the bag. I'm already there. I take a deep breath. I knock on the door and I dive in.
Excellent. Okay, so good. So regardless of what else happened that day, it could be a great day, it could be a sideways day. It could be when you show up, you have that system in place so that when you're at the door, you are in that space where you're ready to meet them, match them, and then connect with them.
Right. And just like the numbers thing we were talking about before, I always want to show up as a 5, the most neutral of myself. I don't want to show up in a bad mood. I don't want to show up super hyped, just that neutral self so that I can adjust myself to that 7 or 3, depending on where I need to meet them.
How important do you think rate of speech is?
Very. We have retirees in our area who are sweet Southern belles and who take a little bit more time to maybe process information or whatever it is. But I think it's so important to meet the other person at the speed that they talk. They will definitely respect you more when you do that and feel like they're in good company. And likewise, I've been with people where I'm like, man, I really got to pick up my speed. They're talking really, really fast. And I feel like I have to meet them there or else they're 10 thoughts ahead of me and I'm back in the dust and they're going to make decisions without me at that point. So I think speed is very important.
When some people first attempt to match speed, I have heard from some agents that they feel as if the people are going to know that they're doing it. Do you have any thoughts around that?
We are the only people who know who we are, right? We live with ourselves day to day. I know my speed, you know your speed, but if I've never met you before, how would I know,
That's right.
I think
they're not going to know.
We're our own worst critics and we're the only person that knows the actual truth. But also, I don't have the ability to talk at 1,000 miles a minute typically. So even if someone else talks at 1,000 miles a minute, I'll go as fast as I can that feels genuine to me, but I'm not going to speak incredibly fast. So
right. I have to slow myself down. You know me pretty well. If I'm set on regular speed, I'm a very fast talker. So I actually have had to work on that and practice that through the years.
That's true.
To make sure that I slow myself down.
When I'm super nervous, I'll talk a lot faster and then I trip up on my words. Hey, there you go. So
like there. Well, I think it's good. So we've talked about facial expressions. We have talked about rate of speech. We've talked about the physicality and being neutral and matching as they come in. And I know, as we did discuss, it's really critical when you first meet somebody. What I'm thinking about is, as an agent going through a transaction, when do you typically reach back in and bring these skills to the front again? Are there times that come up during a transaction where you stop and think, for me to be the most effective and to give them a great experience, let me tune in to mirroring, matching, and making sure I'm in alignment with them?
Well, I think it's important throughout, but I think it specifically matters when maybe there's a hiccup or an issue or a hard time during a transaction. At that point, people can be their most vulnerable selves and they want their best friend helping them through that hard time instead of someone who's going to be demanding and forcing them to do something or to feel something that they don't feel. So I think it's important to get on their level in those instances. For example, let's just say that a inspection goes really bad and they are just super anxious about it. And I'm thinking something is not that big of a deal. Maybe there was, a couple of really small things that came back on it that they just think the sky is falling. It's important to
Right.
empathize with them, understand where they're coming from and why those small things might be important to them, bringing my energy to match their energy and letting them say what they need to say, get it all out, and then help them to find a solution there, matching their energy so that
Right.
they feel heard, but yet helping them get out of that hole with a little bit of positive energy over time and working through whatever that issue is.
I think it's so important. And the way that you just brought that up is so critical for making people know they are heard and understood. And also that you are treating them like an individual. And it's not just some conveyor belt of real estate transactions where you're just saying the same thing to everyone. And I really believe that they're not going to be able to move forward with confidence until they know that you understand them and that you respect how they feel, whether you agree with it or not. So, Katie, you're so right. If you want to be able to move someone forward during a difficult time in a transaction, if you make them feel as if you fully understand them in that moment, then they're going to be able to get out of their own way and move ahead. But if you try to push them too soon, too fast, or if you say this is the worst, and we both know people who say this. Let's say you're my client and you call me and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Did you see the GFIC outlets, or there's a problem there? Maybe the electrical's not safe. What if the house is going to burn down? So you and I both know, because we deal with this all day. Very common occurrence, fairly easy fix, not even that expensive. But if we said that right out of the gate, if you called me and you were nervous and I was like, there's nothing to be nervous about, that's easy to take care of. In fact, it's not even that expensive, blah, blah, blah. Are you going to feel as if I am taking care of you?
Absolutely not. I would probably feel like dismissed almost,
Yes. Yeah. It makes it so. There's one of my first mentors in real estate taught me that people walk through every day and they want to feel smart and they want to feel right. And just like in a very normal way, not like an egomaniacal, like I'm smart and right, but very like people just want to feel understood, smart, right, and hard. So if you think to yourself, if a client is upset, and it truly is something that is probably pretty minor, don't jump straight to it's minor, because then you're making them wrong. You're making their feelings wrong, and you're kind of making them feel like they're not smart, right? So like using that GFIC example, someone's not going to feel good about themselves after that conversation. But if you match their rate of speech, adopt their same body positioning if you're together, and then say, I understand how you could feel that way. It can be nerve-wracking when there's anything wrong with anything to do with the electrical system. Right away, you're making them feel, oh, okay, I'm not abnormal because I thought this was, and then you, as you said, then you guide them to, here's the great news. This is fairly common, and it's something that could, right? So just those subtle nuances will allow you to help them reach their ultimate goal, which is either acquiring the new property or selling an existing property. And that's what's most important, not being upset at the outlets.
So many people say to me, I'm sure this is, something that is just so small and a non-issue. And I always tell people, no, every question that you have is important because I want you to feel comfortable. This is about you feeling comfortable moving forward. For example, I have a client who actually, we just got back from the closing, so that's very exciting. His
Nice.
inspection report was a mile long, and luckily he knew it was going to be that way. And he wanted to read through every single line with me in the office because that is what made him feel comfortable. And do I do that with every client? No, because not every one of them wants that in their experience. Some people want to read it alone by themselves, but he wanted to get my
Right.
expertise in what I had seen in the past. And I talked him through that. And I could still tell that something was missing. He still felt a little frazzled moving forward. And I asked him, I said, would it make you more comfortable if, and then I gave him a couple of solutions and he kind of chose from that. And automatically I could see his shoulders drop. He leaned back and
Mm-hmm.
was happy at the solutions that I presented to him. So coming with calming energy, super important, acknowledging people's emotions and questions that they are valid, and moving forward with confident solutions. I think that's
Right.
very important to do.
I think so too. So he
He
closed
did,
today.
yes. Yeah.
Excellent. And is he
Super
excited?
excited. There were bumps along the road and, as always, but we made it and he's very happy. And we talked on the phone earlier today and he commended me for, he's never given me compliments through this process, but on the phone today, he was like, you've just been really amazing. You complimented me a lot. And I thought that was very sweet and so
Mm-hmm.
validating of just the care that I put into that transaction along with the rest of them that I've got.
Right.
So it was nice.
Right. Well, it ties into what we're talking about because he's now the owner of the house and you left him feeling as if he was important. And so that is just really critical. And you did it. And all these things that we're talking about, it all adds to that total experience.
Right. And I even asked him when we were
What would you say to someone?
sorry. I even asked
Yeah.
him when we were sitting at the
No, go ahead.
closing table. I said, "Hey, would you mind writing me a 5-star review?" And he was like, "Absolutely." So, very nice. Yeah.
Good. That's really good. That is really good. But I feel like some of our colleagues out there may hear this conversation and they would say, oh, none of that matters. All that matters is if you show them that you know what you're doing. They rely on expertise and they rely on, claiming that they're the best and that they know the best and they just show up who they are all the time everywhere. What would you say to someone who thinks that this is not important?
Real estate is just another relationship, right? This is just like in our personal lives. We show up as our authentic self and we get more, a better relationship with others. Our friends aren't expecting us to be these perfect people. They're not expecting us to have all the answers. And where do we feel the most seen is with our close family and friends. And that's when we have built rapport with them, just another human, because they are human. They're not perfect. We don't need to show off.
Right.
I would bet that there's some statistic out there that people have a better relationship with their agent and feel and look back at a transaction with, positive thoughts based on how they felt, not based on, the other person having all the answers or doing things perfectly.
Right.
It's all truly about the way that you make people feel.
Absolutely. You are absolutely right. They're not, 7 years down the road. They're not at a dinner. If you were very clinical or always yourself and made it all about the transaction and not about the people, they're not sitting at a dinner saying like, you know what? We had an agent and once they got us a bigger credit on Section 2 termite work than we expected. Okay. No, you're right. They're talking about, wow, it was great with Katie. I had a ton of questions. She answered them all. And not that she knew them all, but we did it together. And she made me feel great. And then I got the house. And it's really funny because I wasn't sure if I'd ever hear from her again, because that's happened to me with other agents. Yet the closing was the beginning of our relationship, not the end. So, because if you truly value these relationships, it's going to continue and it's going to continue to grow. I
just went back to a client's house. We just closed maybe 15 months ago and they're looking to sell, move to France. But I went over there and, the things that we reminisce about have nothing to do with the numbers or the inspection or anything. It was, I took them to a local place for breakfast and we laughed about, how nerdy the husband is and like personality stuff. It was breaking bread with
Right.
the other person and really getting to know them as a human. That was the most memorable thing. It had nothing to do with, me getting them that credit or anything like that. It was all about feelings and getting to know the other
Right.
person as a human.
Well, I want to share with everyone listening that you have had a really interesting career progression. And I don't think you ended up as an incredible realtor by accident. You have a background in the Air Force, right? And served our country. Thank you for serving our country. You also acquired an MBA and you have a background in, I believe it's civil engineering. So that is a really interesting combination of factors where with the civil engineering, you've got all the analytical skills, the ability to look big picture, but also look at a very micro level. You absolutely are brilliant at analyzing opportunity. And even none of us have a crystal ball, but making projections or interpreting the market. In the military, you also learned critical communication skills. Yeah, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but talk about a boot camp and learning about other people and how other people work together in group dynamics. You definitely went through that. So it is really interesting to me. And then getting that MBA gives you that business mind and approach as a CEO, a rainmaker, a professional business owner, right? The thing that is common, especially in the MBA and the military, is that people element. And I feel like you probably ended up in real estate because although you still get to employ the skills of your civil engineering, you have way more people interaction.
Absolutely.
And I think you have a gift for that. So I don't think it's an accident that your multiple paths led you to where you are today.
Yeah, when I was in the military, I can actually think of the exact, because when you're an officer in the Air Force, you kind of jump around from job to job, especially earlier on in your career. So you get a lot of little tastes of different roles. And I think the one that had the most impact on my people skills, because I mean, I'm an engineer. We know how engineers can be with their people skills. But I remember I was an exec, like a secretary for a full bird colonel. And I just realized how important relationships are when I was in that role. I'm constantly picking up the phone and talking to, maybe it's someone's mother who called, or it could be a 4-star general. You never knew who was going to pick up or who was going to be on the other line. So I really learned how to match people, at least verbally, when I was, answering the colonel's phone calls. And I realized how important relationships are and, tailoring the conversation to the small talk that some people might want to have or getting down to business.
Right.
So that is where I definitely learned a lot about people skills. And I feel
sure
like
you
that
did.
chameleon that I started becoming in the military has brought me into real estate and helped me be a chameleon with my clients as well.
I agree. And that is such a strength. It's a versatility. So you've developed a versatility where any client of any age, interest, background, you're going to be able to see them for who they are and who they want to be. And you're going to be able to make them feel valued because of that versatility that you've developed. So I just think it's really fascinating. So if someone is listening to us and they are sitting there thinking, I want to improve on my versatility, what would you recommend? What are some first steps that you would tell someone if they feel as if this is an area where they need to improve? What could they do to start improving their skills and being versatile?
Great question. You know what comes to mind that's probably a really wacky idea? Something like speed dating. How do you meet the most number of people in, the fastest way? And all that boils down to is putting yourself in different situations, absorbing information, and figuring out how to improve in that context or that situation over time. I think just practicing.
I think that's a great idea. I think that is a great idea. So find speed dating. Now, if they're married, if someone is married, I don't want you to go on the speed dating route. Similar would be to join a networking group or a hobby group or Toastmasters. the old standard, right? So like that could really help
Absolutely.
as well. Well, I really have enjoyed discussing this in depth with you. I'm so thrilled for your client today. Now, you're currently practicing your real estate business in Asheville, North Carolina at Keller Williams Professionals.
Yes. Yep.
Correct? Yes. Okay. All right, Katie. Thank you so much for sharing everything with us today. And I'm going to have all of your contact information. So if anyone out there is looking for a great agent in Asheville, North Carolina, please reach out to Katie. Also, if you are thinking about getting a primary or secondary home, I know you all have a very strong secondary home market. Please reach out to Katie. All of her contact information is in the description, and you can reach out to her right away.